So the next section that we're going to work on is the current empirical literature, right? This is now when we get to our most relevant stuff. Okay, when we start looking at this now and we start going through, we are now in a much narrower focus, right? We're down here towards the end. We're starting to now just look at what research has already been out here. What we are trying to do is show what has been done, in our specific area, right? So what literature is out there, and then we're going to end with holes. Now, we're not going to point out the holes now, we're going to point out the holes in the conclusion, which is the final step. But as we're working through it, we need to explain all the evidence that applies in answering our question. So if we go back now to our discussion here, we can see from this standpoint that the last area here is neuropsych testing. We still have team management, and we'll kind of talk about that here at the end as a special sort of thing where we go through. You might have more than one in this that you go through. It's all dependent on that. I just have this as the example there that I haven't got through. So now I need to talk about, first off, what is the latest research with regards to brain function from neuropsych testing, processing speed, and baseline testing, right? And that baseline testing obviously will lead to us talking to team management, where we have recommendations that baselines can be in groups, right, with that. So I need to know specifically, how is neurological testing being used? What is the latest research in there? So now when I get down to this section, right, with that, I need to do a paper specifically on what we were doing, right? So this is probably the most normal that you do. This is more paper format and explaining to me the evidence that is been done regarding the specific components. So in this case, right, we're talking about neuropsych testing, and so we need to look at all of the different components within neuropsych testing. That's when we need to really spend some time outlining what is there, how can we take all of the most relevant stuff, all of the most recent stuff, and organize it in a way that continues to make its way down to eventually our baseline testing, right, which then leads to group management and team management that will then go through there. So this is the normal aspect of writing a paper specifically for that. Before, we were talking about theories, and we were trying to show that we know the information that we need to know to be able to process the relevant research. And this now, we're proving that we have read and understand previous work. Okay, so if it is applicable to what we're doing, then it would come into this section, right? So you got to make sure that you don't get too bloated in this section, right? Because since this section is very specific, you need to include all references within there. In the previous section, right, we were just explaining the theory so we can use the best references. So with this, depending on how much is out there, that's when we decide, is this theory or is this, current empirical literature, right? The most current stuff. Now, the good thing is it's a continuum. We'll be using this as long as we continue in our outline and we focus our outline, and we constantly are focusing at top to bottom. We can move sections up and down based on where they fit. So just continue to write, but at this point, focus on all the references associated within your outline. This is really where you need to get to the redundancy, right? And that focus. So work with your team, work with the instructor, work with myself, work with your committee chairperson, whatever it takes to make sure that we are identifying all these references and we are figuring out a way to explain them.